The pancreas. Objective: to learn the structure and functions of the human pancreas. The human pancreas is a pear-shaped gland, which is located in the back of the upper abdomen, somewhat behind and below the stomach. The head of the gland is the widest part and lies in the curve of the duodenum. The gland tapers and extends upward, ending near the spleen. The pancreas is composed of two types of tissues: the exocrine portion, which secretes digestive enzymes, and the endocrine portion, which secretes hormones. Because of its functionality in both the endocrine and digestive, called the islets of Langerhans, named after the 19th century German pathologist Paul Langerhans, are scattered more heavily in the tail of the pancreas. The islets of Langerhans are composed of three types of cells: alpha and beta being the two primary ones, and delta being the third. In response to dropping levels of blood glucose, the alpha cells secrete the hormone glucagon, which raises blood glucose levels. The beta cells secrete the hormone insulin in response to a rising level of circulating glucose. Insulin regulates sugar metabolism and helps to maintain normal sugar levels in the blood. A low secretion of insulin can lead to an accumulation of glucose in the blood, a situation known as hyperglycemia, and to the metabolic disorder diabetes mellitus. The delta cells secrete somatostatin, which regulates the release of insulin and glucagon.
Pancreas is healthy. It contributes to a healthy digestive system. However, when our pancreas does not function correctly and is unwell, we can have trouble digesting food properly or maintaining our blood sugar in a healthy range. The consequences of an unwell pancreas may include diarrhea, bloating, flatulence, oily and foul-smelling stool, weight loss, malnutrition, poor blood sugar control, and diabetes. Heavy alcohol consumption, high-fat diets, eating large meals, being overweight, and tobacco products can put stress on your pancreas, causing it to work less well. There are also some genetic conditions that affect the pancreas, notably cystic fibrosis. To help keep your pancreas healthy, eat a varied diet that is rich in fruits and vegetables. Include fish and white meats as favored sources of protein. Limit high-fat foods and alcohol to special occasions. Maintain a healthy weight, and watch your cholesterol and triglyceride levels.
The stream then takes the glucose and the insulin to every cell in our body that needs it. To make this easier to understand, let's look at muscle cells. At the muscle cells, it's insulin that allows the glucose to get into the cells where it can be used for energy. It's a bit like insulin is a key unlocking the door to the cells so the glucose can get in. That way, the blood glucose level starts to drop. But the blood glucose level can be topped up at any point by the liver releasing extra glucose that it has stored. The blood glucose rises again, and again the pancreas produces more insulin to move with that glucose through the bloodstream to the muscle cells, open the doors and let the glucose in. The body functions best with the blood glucose at an optimum level. It doesn't like it if the blood glucose rises too high. Normally, there's a cycle within the body which balances out the glucose and the insulin level, and this is achieved by the food you eat, the pancreas, and the liver. However, in some people, the system doesn't work properly and they develop diabetes. There are two main types of diabetes, type 1 and type 2. In type 1 diabetes, the body isn't making any insulin at all. This is because of an autoimmune response whereby the body has destroyed the insulin-producing cells in the pancreas. We don't entirely know why that happens in some people and not in others. Type 1 diabetes accounts for about 10% of all cases. It's most often found in the under 40s, and it's by far the most common type of diabetes found in childhood. In type 1 diabetes, the carbohydrate containing food is broken down into glucose as normal. That glucose then moves into the bloodstream. Normally, the body would produce insulin to let that glucose into the cells, but in type 1 diabetes, there is no insulin being produced, so the glucose can't get into the body cells at all. So the level of glucose in the blood rises and rises. The body tries to lower the level of glucose, it tries to get rid of the glucose through the kidneys. Type 2 diabetes accounts for about 90% of all cases in the population. It's most common in the over 40 age group in the white population and in the over 25 age group in the South Asian population. Type 2 diabetes is a little more complex because there's slightly more processes at work. Either the body isn't producing quite enough insulin, or the insulin it is producing isn't working properly. That can be due to being overweight because a build-up of fat can stop insulin doing its job properly, but it can also happen in people of a healthy weight. So in type 2 diabetes, the carbohydrate containing food is broken down into glucose in the stomach and digestive system as normal. That glucose then moves into the bloodstream. The pancreas starts to produce insulin, which moves with the glucose through the bloodstream to all the body cells which need glucose for energy. However, the glucose can't always get into the cells because the locks to the cell doors have become furred up with fat deposits. That means that the insulin can't open the cell doors properly. So the level of glucose in the blood continues to rise. In response to this, the pancreas produces even more insulin. So the blood glucose levels continue to rise and the insulin levels continue to rise. This situation is further complicated by the cells, which are desperate for energy, sending out emergency signals to the liver to release stored glucose. The blood glucose level goes up, and the pancreas produces more and more insulin until it can't cope anymore, and eventually it can wear out.
Carbohydrates, or carbs, break down into glucose, which is carried by the bloodstream to various organs of the body. Insulin is a hormone produced by beta cells of the pancreas and is necessary for glucose intake by target cells. In healthy people, beta cells of the pancreas produce insulin. Insulin binds to its receptors on target cells and induce glucose intake. In type 1 diabetes, beta cells of the pancreas are destroyed by the immune system by mistake. The reason why this happens is unclear, but genetic factors are believed to play a major role. Insulin production is reduced. Less insulin binds to its receptor on target cells. Less glucose is taken into the cells. More glucose stays in the blood. The pancreas produces enough insulin, but something goes wrong either with receptor binding or insulin signaling inside the target cells. The cells are not responsive to insulin and therefore cannot import glucose. Glucose stays in the blood. In other words, type 2 diabetics are insulin resistant. Here again, genetic factors predispose susceptibility to the disease, but it is believed that lifestyle plays a very important role in type 2. Typically, obesity, inactive lifestyle, and unhealthy diet are associated with higher risk of type 2 diabetes. Type 2 is characterized by adult onset. Symptoms usually appear gradually and start after the age of 30. Type 2 diabetes
cells. Why is insulin important? Insulin helps sugar move from your blood into your cells. Insulin is a hormone that is made by beta cells in your pancreas. Cells in your body need sugar for energy. Sugar from food makes your blood sugar levels go up if it cannot get into the cells. Insulin made by beta cells lowers your blood sugar levels by helping sugar move from your blood into your cells. In addition to insulin, there is also another hormone made in the pancreas called glucagon that tells the liver to release stored sugar if your blood sugar gets too low or if you have not eaten for many hours, such as overnight. What other hormones are involved in diabetes? When you eat, another hormone made in the gut helps the pancreas produce the right amount of insulin to move sugar from the blood into the cells. This hormone is called glucagon-like peptide 1, or GLP-1. One of its primary actions is to stimulate the beta cells in the pancreas to produce insulin when the blood sugar is too high. It also helps to lower the amount of sugar made by the liver. What happens in diabetes? The most common types of diabetes are type 1 and type 2. In type 1 diabetes, the body makes little or no insulin, so people with type 1 diabetes must take insulin every day. Type 1 diabetes is usually diagnosed more often in children and young adults. In type 2 diabetes, the body prevents the insulin it does make from working right. The body may make some insulin, but not enough. Most people with diabetes, about 90%, have type 2. This kind of diabetes usually happens in people who are older or in those who are overweight, not able to use it properly. Type 2 diabetes usually begins with insulin resistance. This is when the cells can't use insulin properly. As we explained earlier, insulin is a hormone made in the pancreas, a gland near the small intestines. Special cells in the pancreas, called beta cells, make the insulin. The body constantly checks how much sugar is in the bloodstream. When blood sugar levels rise beyond a certain point, the body signals the pancreas to release insulin. Insulin helps the cells use sugar. The diagnosis of diabetes is given when not enough insulin is available, either because the pancreas can no longer keep up with the demand or because the body can't use the insulin that is produced. Let's take a closer look. Cell walls have little locks called receptors. Insulin fits into those locks like a key. When insulin opens the locks, sugar is allowed to enter the cells. When the body is not able to make enough insulin, blood sugar is locked out of the cells. Sometimes the locks change in shape. Then the insulin can no longer fit into them. Either way, blood sugar is locked out of the cell. It stays in the bloodstream and can become too high, causing hyperglycemia, which can lead to the symptoms of diabetes. When cells cannot get sugar, they no longer have the fuel they need. The pancreas tries to make up for this by working harder. At first, the pancreas keeps up by making more insulin. In time, the pancreas is unable to continue doing this, which is when the symptoms of diabetes may appear. As a result of these changes, your physician may discuss starting a diabetes care plan with